Hello.
Hello? Hey, what's up, man? It's Alec Torelli. You're on the Ask Alec show.
Oh, hey, how's it going, Alec?
Hey, man. You don't mind if I'm recording, right? We're live right now. Or we're not live, but I'm recording this so
Nope.
that we can catch up.
Yeah, not at all, man.
Awesome, man. I got your email, and yeah, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what's up, and I'm happy to answer your question.
All right, so I'm from mid-Michigan, 18 years old. Got into poker around last January, and I went to go and play my first MTT over at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Took down second place at that after only a month of playing, and it's been an uphill grind for poker so far, but I'm loving every second of it, enjoying it.
Yep.
And I'd love the opportunity to get to go pro for that. So,
Awesome. So
kind of where I'm
18
at right
from
now.
Michigan, just started playing, want to go pro.
Yeah.
Cool. What are you struggling with? What's your question?
So basically, my mother doesn't really approve of the whole, being a professional gambler thing. She's co-signed on my loans right now for college and everything, and she wants her to go towards a more traditional career path.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you had any advice for parents on bringing up to them that I want to do this as a career and that I can be profitable doing this,
Yeah.
and it's a legitimate way to make money.
For sure. So when I really relate to you because I was in a similar spot when I was 18. I was at SMU. I was there, obviously being supported by my parents, paying for tuition, and I ended up dropping out of college to go play poker professionally because that was my dream as well. And so I really relate to the spot you're in because I went through it, and I understand what it's like not to really to feel like everybody around you is maybe not, I don't want to say not supporting you because my parents were really supportive, but just like they have a different idea of what they think you should do with your life or with the direction that you should go. So I definitely relate to what you're saying. And I can't speak exactly to like, your parents' situation or anyone out there watching is like their specific situation just because everyone's everyone's going to be everyone's parents are going to be, or everyone's people surrounding them, whether it's, parents, could be girlfriend, could be friends, are going to be at different ends of the spectrum in terms of tolerance level or acceptance level for something esoteric like playing poker. But I think poker's a hard sell also because it might be a harder sell than other esoteric professions, like if you wanted to be a musician, for example, or a photographer or a YouTuber. Like, it might be a little bit more accepted than a gambler. And so gambling's particularly hard even for a liberal parent or friend or loved one to sort of accept, and I get that. I think what helped me is like obviously like succeeding sort of trumps everything, because like if you make it, then I know this isn't like the most favorite answer, but like if you do well, then that is sort of like you're automatically safe. But on the way, it's a little bit of a catch-22 because you want that support and acceptance, but at the same time you don't have the success to really prove that you can make it, so there's that in-between time. And one thing that really helped me was like treating myself like the professional that I wanted to become, and that meant like having a business plan. That meant specifically treating poker like I would any other business. And so it's basically like, okay, this is how much money I'm allocating towards poker, this is how much time I'm giving this business endeavor, and these are the stakes I'm going to play. This is my business plan. This is how much I expect to earn. This is my hourly rate. This is how much my costs are. This is how much my ROI is. This is how profitable I'm going to be. These are how I keep track of my expenses. And basically just treating poker like you would any other business. And that means having a business plan. Like, you're not going to just open a restaurant and say, oh, I'm going to make great food and hope to make money. Like, you're going to have a very specific idea of how much your food costs, how much you're going to sell it for, what your profits are going to be, how much your employees are going to cost, and what your timeline is in terms of how long it's going to take you to be profitable. And so I feel like that was the approach I took starting out. I really kind of had an idea of, this is how much money I'm allocating, this is how much I think I can make, this is how long I think I'm going to allocate towards poker, and if I fail, this is my backup plan. Like, this is my plan B. And so I knew dropping out of SMU at 18 that I was going to give myself a year, and in the fall semester of 2006, I think it was 2006, if I wasn't making a certain amount of money, or I wasn't playing a certain limit, or I wasn't achieving my poker goals, I was going to be back at SMU. And the only difference was instead of being 18 and broke, I was going to be 19 and broke. And so I was going to be 1 year behind everyone. But my best case scenario was I was going to make it, and I was going to be traveling the world full time, playing poker for a game I love for a living, facilitating this lifestyle that I want to live. So I had a very clear idea of how I was going to do it. And I also had a very clear idea of what I was going to do. Like, I knew exactly what I call North Star was. Like, I knew exactly where I was trying to go and how I was going to get there. And so I think that really made it easier for people to kind of like get behind me in terms of me wanting to pursue something esoteric, because they saw that I wasn't just an 18-year-old addicted to gambling that wanted to feed his gambling itch. I was really like potentially a professional poker player that really had a business plan in place that was treating this like different than all the other amateurs out there that were doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It makes perfect sense to me.
But I want to be honest, like, you might do all that and you might have the perfect business plan. You might crush it. Like, I don't know you or your parents. Like, you might crush it at poker, make $100,000 a year, travel the world full time, do whatever it is you want to do, become the best, and your parents still might not accept that. Like, that's a possibility too, right? Like, so I'm not saying that like all this is just going to be the magic bullet. I'm just saying these things helped me on my journey, and I'm really lucky to have supportive parents. Like, I got dealt a good hand. Like, I got dealt a playable hand in terms of that respect. But I know people out there that, like, you know, they're, and this is like a little bit more like personal, like their parents just had an idea that they were going to be a doctor or a lawyer, and they never accepted poker even though they became successful, right? They were the top 2% of poker players. That just was never accepted because their parents never got over that hurdle of they're doing something different than the parents' idea had of themselves. And that could be true whether you play poker or you are an entrepreneur or you do something different or you start your own business or you go into a path that's different than what your parents have in mind. And I don't know where you're at on, or where you or your parents are on that spectrum, you know? And so that's just part of the game too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm kind of on that part right now where my mom kind of had this ideal plan of what she wanted for me and what she wanted me to be. And it almost feels a little bit weird that I'm branching out and deviating from that plan, especially with something not traditional like poker or gambling or something like that in general.
Well, you're finding your own way, man. And one thing, like, you might realize that I actually told my dad real quick, because I kind of had an idea that this was going to be a stepping stone towards something else, was like, and maybe this kind of made it easier to kind of get behind, was that I knew right away at 18, dropping out of college to play poker professionally, and I was all in on poker. Like, if you follow my career, like, I was 60 hours a week for 10 years, like, all in on poker. That was all I did, but I knew from the get that poker wasn't going to be what I dedicated my life to. I knew that I wasn't going to play poker exclusively my entire life, and I felt that poker was a stepping stone to get me to something else, and I think that's going in towards business, and maybe public speaking and things like that. But like and it gave me the experience I needed. It was like my life education to help, you know, teach other people things about that I learned in poker that apply to life and business. That could be my whole thing. But I knew in the beginning, and maybe I wasn't exactly clear about what I was going to do outside of poker when I was going in at 18. But I knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of I wasn't going to be 65 at the poker tables. And not that that's a bad thing. I'm not judging anyone that does that. I just knew for me that poker wasn't the only, it was a chapter of my life. It wasn't the book. And so I think that perhaps made it easier too. But again, this is just speaking about my situation. Like, some parents might not accept a chapter because they don't want to tell their friends that little Charlie is not at Harvard, Charlie's gambling and playing poker, and that's their own thing, but you know, it has nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? So that's just like, that's on them. And so that might be hard to accept even if you're playing for 6 months or a year, because they have to go to the Rotary Club and tell their friends that, you know, you know what I'm saying? And so that's their own ego at stake too. So I'm not saying this is your parents, but I'm just saying this is part of the equation that may or may not apply to your situation, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then one more point that I had was, you know, being 18, I have 3 years until I can actually go to Vegas and be a professional in Vegas.
Right.
What did you do in that time from when you were 18, 19 years old to 21 when you were up grinding the SOP or WSOP and the cash games in Las Vegas?
So two things on that point. Well, two things on that point. The first thing is that I was 18 when I dropped out of college, so I was in the exact same spot as you. Like, my dream was always Vegas, not because I wanted to, like, mainly because that's just like the quintessential dream of a poker player, like playing cash games in Vegas. But I was also somewhat agnostic towards where I was, and I mostly chased the opportunity. And when I was coming up, you know, poker was in a different place than it is now, and there was a ton of opportunity playing high-stakes cash games in Vegas. And so I was, like, really drawn towards that at a very young age, even though tournaments weren't exactly... I played, like, a lot of tournaments when I was 21, 22, because I thought that's what I wanted, but I quickly realized that high-stakes cash games were where the money was at, and that was my thing. But when I was your age, to answer your question directly, I moved to Melbourne, Australia, because I wanted to play at the highest levels in the world, too, but I couldn't, because I couldn't play in Vegas. I couldn't play it in LA, you know? So I wanted to play the WPT and travel around, but I found that the EPT, which, you know, was in Europe all over, and the Aussie Millions that were in Australia were the place to be. And so I could go to Australia, play in some of the most prestigious games that were out there, also fulfill my personal dream of traveling the world full time, which is what I wanted to do, and I wanted to live in places that I've always wanted to visit, like Australia, Europe, London. And so I got to do that through pursuing poker overseas. You know, one thing I would say for you now is it really, you know, that's my path, but I'm not saying that my path is right. I was just mapping what I wanted to do, my actions towards my ambition, which was always to travel. So I always looked at poker like a vehicle to get me to where I wanted to go. And where I wanted to go was to spend time seeing different places around the world, experiencing different cultures, meeting new people. And the fact that I could play poker to get me there was cool. I also deeply loved the game, and the fact that I could play a game for a living was amazing. Sometimes I was in these other countries like Australia living there, and like for 3 months I like didn't see anything other than my apartment and the casino because I love poker so much. But it was also cool to me that I was in another place. So one thing that might be unique for you is you could kind of use this opportunity now at 18. Like, what I see is if you could make like $2,500 a month playing poker, you could basically live anywhere because you're 18. You can like share a roommate with 3 people and spend $500 a month, and then backpack around and like take buses. I did all that stuff, and so you don't really need to make that much money in terms of poker money. Like, it's very attainable to make that money playing poker. Even if you play 1-3, you could still see the whole world, and that would be something that I would encourage you to do, whether or not you're playing poker to support you. Just because that's an experience that's going to pay dividends for a lifetime. And like, that was my education. And I feel like, no, I didn't go to school and get an MBA, but I felt that I came out of my college years wiser than some people that did, because I had experiences that you can't get at university. Granted, they learned shit that I didn't know, but I still did things that only those experiences could give me the knowledge of. And, you know, and so I think for you, I would encourage you to see different cultures and experience different things, try a lot of things, because on the back end of your poker career, you might want to do something else, and the knowledge you have and the experience you have of traveling around and seeing different cultures and experiencing different things is going to go a long way.
Definitely, so like, that's very interesting.
I would pick some, like, you're like, you know, the reason I wanted to reach out to you and take this call is, like, you're at the coolest place in the world, man. You're 18, you have, like, the whole world in front of you. You could go anywhere. You could do anything. You don't have any responsibility. You don't have college debt, like student debt. Like, you're in the best spot possible. And it might not seem like that now because you're like, well, I'm 18. How do I figure out my way? You know, I need to grow my bankroll, whatever. But like, you have time. And so you have an asset that's finite that other people that might have more money than you that are older don't have. And like, they should be wanting to trade spots with you because you have, you know, plenty of time to do whatever you want. So I would just encourage you to, sorry buddy, I'm moving my table because I'm sitting outside because I hate being in an office. So I'm sitting outside and the sun, anyway, no worries. So one thing I would challenge you to do is just figure out where you would love to go in the world and like really challenge yourself to think outside the box. Like, Vegas is cool, but it'll be there when you're 21, you're 24, and you're 31. But what's really cool right now for you, in my opinion, is Barcelona, is London, is Australia, is Manila, is Singapore. You know, are places in the world that you can have an incredible experience, and your mom's going to hate me for this probably, but that you can do something really, really cool that even if you bust all your money playing poker, you have something that nobody else in the world has. And so I feel like where I get my edge and why I could connect with a lot of people from different walks of life is I've been to 43 countries, or 43, 44, and I've traveled to a lot of places. I've seen how a lot of different people around the world live. And so that's like that was my education. That was how I learned about the world. And so I'm just speaking from my standpoint, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a very interesting point to consider, and I'll have to think about that going forward. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and also, like, realistically, I don't know the cost of living where you are, but, like, the cost of living in Barcelona is cheaper than a lot of places like Miami where there's a big poker scene, or LA where there's a big poker scene. And not that you're ready for that yet because you're 18, but like, I would look into cost of living and the lifestyle that you can have in a different place around the world, and then go to places that, you know, you're going to make the same amount of money regardless, right? Like, you're going to make, your hourly is going to be your hourly regardless of whether you're playing poker, but go somewhere where your hourly goes a lot farther, have a cheap base, and then you could travel from that base to various poker tournaments and action in different places for fun around the world. But by keeping your cost of living low, you give yourself more options on the back end to realize whatever goals and ambitions you have for your life. And even if that means just saving your money now for something that you don't know what you're going to want in the future, but just realizing that one day you're going to be 27, want to get married, maybe have family someday, and that's all going to require capital. And then, you know, maybe you're saving that money now for that, like, rainy day or that other ambition that you're going to have later in life. Keeping your cost of living low is going to allow you to get ahead, so that if you decide when you're 21 poker didn't work out, or you just want to get out of poker because you want to get into selling bicycles to triathletes or whatever the hell you want to do with your life, I have no idea, but that's going to allow you the options to do that, because you have money for that startup, and you don't have to work to get another job to work for someone else. You can pursue your own ambitions and dreams. And so finding a place with a low cost of living that is really inspiring for you, like for me, it was Melbourne, Australia. And like I said, my whole thing was traveling. So every place that was new was more exciting than a place I'd already been. And so that was a way I wanted to do it. But for you, finding that place that's really going to inspire you to work harder to play poker, and that's really going to make all the risk of, you know, not going to college to play poker worth it, makes sense to me. Like, you should shoot for the stars, because it's as hard to make it as a pro in Barcelona as it is in London, as it is in Vegas. Like, you might as well just do what you want, because you can, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So I would just go for it. And, like, you're, like, just, like, don't listen to anyone that's like, you have to have it all figured out now. Because, like, you're in the best spot of anyone. Like, you could literally take 4 years, as long as you don't make bad decisions. And bad decisions are taking out a $100,000 loan, going into debt, and failing in a business, and then having to pay that back. As long as you don't make bad decisions that hinder your options in the future, you can take 4 years, break even, meaning your net worth doesn't grow at all, gain a lot of experience, figure out what you want to do for the next 40 years, and be ahead of the game, because you're only going to be 22. And I would still trade all my money to be in your spot. And I'm 31. And, like, right. I would give everything to be you in 4 years. If you just dicked around for 4 years, traveled around, saw 7 countries, met some cool people, learned some shit about yourself, figured out what you wanted to do a little bit more with your life, and just had amazing experiences that helped you get to that next level, whatever that is, you'd still be ahead of the game. Because the people that are coming out of college 4 years in 4 years have $250,000 in debt, and sure, they have a paper to get it back, but I would rather be you. So, like, you're in such a much better spot than everyone else. I would just, like, don't succumb to the pressure of society that's telling you have to have it all figured out, because most of the people that are telling you that still don't know what the hell they want to do with their life, and they're like 35 and 40, and that's really common, by the way. Like, I'm still figuring out things that I want to do on a daily basis, going into different sectors of different businesses, starting different things, working on different projects, maybe thinking of starting my new YouTube channel, branching out into different types of content, giving keynote speeches, traveling for different things. And I'm 31. I've been in the game since I was 18 at your age. I'm still figuring out my shit. You know what I mean? So, like, it's just, like, don't listen to the people that are telling you need to have everything figured out. It's just crazy. You're 18. Like, you just have so much time. I can't even, like, get my head around how much time you have. Like, you're a billionaire in time, right? So you're looking up to people that are like 50 and you're like, fuck, That guy's got so much money. Like, he's so successful, right? He's got this, he's got that, he's at this company with this many employees. Like, look at what these guys are doing. Like, you're a billionaire, just you have a different asset, which is time. It's like, that's like the point I want you to leave with. It's like, you're so rich. Just use with the asset you have and like get a lot of experiences. You really can't lose. You just have to not screw up.
Yeah,
like
sure.
That's it. Like, just don't put yourself in a spot where you're like limiting the options for the rest of your life.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are you thinking? Like, what's your like, what are your thoughts of like, if I was going to do something now, like, what do you think you're going to do?
I would definitely do what you said, weigh my options of cost of living outside of the country, places like, Barcelona, Prague's Italy,
dope.
places like that.
Dope.
And definitely just kind of try to figure out, not totally with my life, but try to figure out a next step of what I can do to set myself up later, to just kind of live my life and experience my life now before I'm, older and regretting not doing these things when I have the time and the resources to actually go out and experience them. So that's definitely a good piece that I took away from you, and I really appreciate that insight.
Totally. Here's the fact that like I'm going to the grave with. You may regret not doing this, and you may regret like settling down too early, and by settling down I mean getting a job that you can get in 3 years, but you're definitely not going to regret living in Prague and living in Barcelona, even if you, quote, fail, and failing means losing all the money that you've set up and coming back in 3 years broke in the same, quote, spot that you are. There's no way you're going to regret that, as long as you don't make a terrible decision like going into like a huge amount of debt. So even if you break even in 3 years, but you've seen 7 countries and you've tried being a pro poker player, and maybe you've tried other things on the way that are like side hobbies which could become businesses, there's just no chance you're going to regret that. Like, yeah, I feel like that's close to impossible. So, whereas I personally think you might regret, like, never having tried, because then you're going to be, married with kids and being like, well, now it's going to be kind of hard to just, like, bounce to Barcelona. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could still do it, but it's just different. Like, you're not going to find out who you are to some extent fully jumping into something else when you could still have all that time for yourself. Like, maybe I'm speaking for me, like, I needed that time for myself where I was traveling the world on my own to kind of get to the place that I wanted to be in life, to like really settle down. And I'm not settled by any means now. I've been married for 5 years, but I'm not physically settled in the sense that we still travel around, but I'm in a place where I'm good being more mature in like a serious relationship, that when I was 18, I wasn't ready for that. But being on my own and traveling, put me in that spot, right? Like, I set myself up for that. So I think there's a lot of things to be said about just taking time for yourself at this point in your life too. And that may or may not be something that resonates with you, but for me, that was huge. Yeah,
for sure. Thank you, Alec, very much for the opportunity to come on, talk to you, and get some insight. I really do appreciate it.
Totally, man. You're in a great spot. I'm like secretly half jealous, like wish I could replay my 18-year-old years and like just do it all again. Like you're just in such a cool spot. I can't like reiterate it enough. So just enjoy the ride, man. Like I guess the one thing I would do differently, like I still would have played it out living in Australia and then going to Europe and then coming back. Like I had a crazy ride when I was 18, and I was also lucky to like get major breaks along the way that helped fuel my roller coaster. But like one thing I would do more of is just be more patient and just enjoy the ride more, and not always feel the need to have all the answers, which is kind of the advice I'm giving you, which I heard when I was your age, but I didn't take enough to the bank. Like I enjoyed the journey, but I was always like achievement and destination driven. And like, I just wish I sat back even more, and like, I wouldn't have even cared if it took me longer to get a little bit more successful or a little bit more, whatever I was trying to achieve. Because it's just such a fucking cool time in your life. It's such a precious time that even at 31, I'm realizing that nothing else is ever going to be like those years. And so I would just live them even more fully than I did, if that was even possible, if I could go back. Like, that would be the thing I would do even more of. So I would just go more all in on doing whatever it is that you, in your heart, want to do at this point. You know, like...
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. So I hope that helps, man. I hope this was inspiring and hope it helps. If you have any questions, hit me up on social. You know, I'm always around.
Yeah, for sure, Alec. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I appreciate
you got it.
Man.
I'm excited to follow up with your journey, man. DM me in like 3 months. Let me know where you landed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'll keep in touch.
All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks, everyone, for joining in on the show. And thank you for your time, Randy. Take it easy, man.
Yep. Thank you, Alec. Have a good day.
See ya.